Imagine you work like a pack mule for over 20 years, but when you finally retire and are ready to enjoy life, you wake up the next day 20 years in the past. Knowing everything that will happen in this world of monsters and awakened beings, you're determined to become the richest and most powerful person in less than 3 years. Our story begins a retirement celebration. He mentioned that his farewell was quite modest, with just a few friends, some drinks, and gifts. But even so, he managed to save 20 years of work, owning several buildings in his name. And now all that was left was to live a comfortable life and travel the world. When he opened his eyes, he realized it wouldn't be that simple. He sat up in bed and noticed he was in a different room. He sighed, understanding that this was the dormitory where he had lived 20 years ago. Looking at his phone, he saw that it was the year 2018. Furious, he threw his phone at the wall, wondering if someone was playing a joke on him. Angry, Diane started shouting, saying they could have sent him back at another time but decided to return him now. Dissatisfied, he asked himself why they were doing this. Rubbing his head, he wondered what he had done wrong. Convincing himself that he had to endure it, he glanced at the watch on his wrist. He realized it was the watch Zhang Qiu had given him. He remembered his friend telling him that this watch was one of the last relics of the legendary Teheido. Looking at the watch, he wondered if it might be the reason for his return and suspected he might have tampered with it while drunk. Suddenly, someone pounded on the door angrily, demanding to know the reason for the noise and telling him to come out. He remembered that the landlord's son lived next door and behaved like a delinquent. Every night, loud sounds would play non-stop. In the morning, he was always charged a fee for the noise, which he paid without even knowing if he was awake. As the man outside asked if he should break down the door, Diane found it extremely irritating. He opened the door while the thug asked what he was doing. Looking at Diane, the guy asked why he was smiling. The chubby man kept complaining to Diane, who noticed his high-quality clothes and leather jacket. The man started to say he considered reporting him, but didn't want to ruin a young man's future, so he'd accept compensation. He held out his hand, saying it would all be fine if he just handed over his watch. But at that moment, Diane, extremely irritated, looked at the guy's hand. Leaving the thug confused, he slapped his hand away. He prepared to launch an attack on the guy. Before the thug could understand what was happening, Diane simply landed a blow on his face. With blood coming from his nose, he started to fall backward. Quickly, Diane grabbed the guy's face before he hit the ground. With extreme force, he delivered a knee strike to his face. The returner asked the chubby guy why all these lowlifes kept approaching society's newcomers. Stepping away from the thug, he said this wasn't even close to what the guy had made him suffer. Even so, it would be enough for now, as he grabbed the chubby guy's clothes. Still on the ground, the man asked if he knew how valuable they were, while Diane said he'd also take his room from now on. He said he didn't understand why he had returned to 2018, but he remembered awakening after falling at a construction site at work. As a kind of blue aura surrounded his body, he said he would try to awaken somewhere. A blue mana coursed through his veins, and Diane remarked that he had been manipulating mana for over 20 years, and that his self-awakening would be no problem. He noted that his body lacked muscle mass and nutrients, but surprisingly, he was handling it well. Spoiling the badass atmosphere, his stomach rumbled, showing he was hungry. Diane began looking for a restaurant near the construction site, but it seemed the restaurant was under renovation. He concluded it was likely because they couldn't easily identify the portals leading to significant damage. Unexpectedly, his attention was drawn by a desperate scream. People were running in panic as a portal opened, surprising him with such a sudden appearance. There was a red wild dog, a monster with fangs that usually lived in packs. An older man grabbed his shoulder, urging the young man to run as fast as possible. Suddenly, they heard a man calling desperately for his son. As the child pleaded for help, Diane wondered if this was why he had returned. Looking around, he tried to find a weapon he could use. He noticed a crowbar, thinking it would do the job. Holding his tool, he ran toward the screams. Suddenly, he heard an extremely loud scream beside him. There was a little girl surrounded by wild dogs, crying out for her father. One of the dogs lunged at her, trying to attack, but in the blink of an eye, Diane managed to pull the girl by her shirt. Facing the dogs, he told the girl to run to her father. The monster started charging at him, furious. In an instant, he vanished from their sight. Swinging his crowbar, he launched an attack on one of the dogs. Quickly, he struck its head. The dog surprisingly recovered fast and tried to attack Diane again, but skillfully, he struck it from below. Landing a blow under its jaw, the monster felt a powerful impact. He wasn't done yet and gripped his makeshift weapon firmly. He spun his body, trying to throw the monster away. Gathering his strength, he began shouting, pushing himself even harder. After all that effort, Diane finally managed to throw the dog away, shocking the other monsters. Once again, the moment was spoiled by his stomach growling. He realized he was indeed hungry and wondered why the dogs were gathering like this. Surprising some of the monsters, the returner remarked that, come to think of it, these guys looked pretty juicy, and that it might be nice to eat them, since they look plump. Seeing Diane drooling with hunger, the monsters started to feel scared. He said that in the past, he had always enjoyed the taste of their meat when he cooked them. A little irritated, the returner said he should finish this quickly since he was starving. Diane said that although he was young and healthy, his current body didn't compare to the one he had at 40. As one of the dogs tried to attack him from above, he said that in contrast, his knees were very strong. In a flash, Diane was on top of the dog, ready to strike. Unexpectedly, he didn't use his weapon, but instead his leg delivering a powerful kick on top of the dog's head. Landing on the ground, Diane saw another monster charging at him. The monster tried to bite him, but the returner managed to dodge, noting that a weapon wouldn't be enough. With quick thinking, he used his watch as brass knuckles. He delivered a strong punch to the monster's head. Looking at the still intact watch, Diane noted how resilient it was. Surveying the area, he noticed about 10 monsters still remaining. To Diane's surprise, the police arrived, asking citizens to follow instructions. Looking at his new shirt, the returner saw it was all torn up. Still unhappy that it had ripped on its first use, one of the officers approached, calling him a superhuman. The man thanked him for protecting the citizens and asked for his name and affiliation to arrange his rewards. As he introduced himself to the officer as Lim Diane, he added that he had no affiliation, surprising the officer. A bit awkwardly, he mentioned he hadn't registered as a superhuman yet, and that it had only been a few hours since his awakening. Diane shared his account information, saying he probably wouldn't receive the rewards right away. Then he bid the officer farewell, saying he was in a hurry. The officer called after him, saying he had something something to tell him, but Daein kept running. As he left, Daein mentally affirmed that his name and contact information should be enough for them to reach him. As soon as the guilds heard about him, they all began searching for him frantically. He was at a restaurant as they served him a creamy soup with meat. Daein finally began eating. After the first spoonful, he murmured about how delicious it was. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, catching his attention with a call, and he realized it was faster than expected. He explained that this was because everyone was focused on recruiting superhumans. Looking at his phone, he noted that it had already been 2 years since the first gate opened, and that instead of military soldiers, superhumans started operating, giving guilds significant influence. The emergence of a new awakened being led to fierce competition for recruitment. Daein wondered how exhausting this situation would be. He also remembered that there were many superhuman criminals besides the 6 approaching disasters. With that, he decided he would use all his knowledge and information about the future to retire in 3 years. Daein stares at his phone, surprised, happy. He realizes that the messages keep coming. But to his shock, someone approaches asking if his name is Lim Daein. He responds affirmatively, asking who is asking. The man introduces himself as Kim Gil-soo, manager of the Royal Guild. Gil-soo says that after seeing the way Daein hunted monsters, he would like to sign a contract with him. But someone interrupts the conversation. It's a woman arriving at the restaurant asking if he is Daein. She asks if he's the man from the monster subjugation video, commenting that he's even more impressive in person. But once again, they're interrupted with someone else claiming to be from the Warrior Guild. As expected, several guild managers show up and start making offers. Daein starts getting annoyed as his phone won't stop vibrating, surrounded by people trying to win him over. To their surprise, Daein tells everyone to shut up. Looking at them coldly, he says that if anyone speaks again, he won't join any guild. Facing the representatives, he asks if they should go somewhere else. In a more spacious room, Daein is seated across from the woman while other managers wait their turn. Sipping his tea, he says he won't drag things out too long. Daein asks for the highest offer they're willing to make for his entry. The Royal Guild manager explains that the contract prevents him from disclosing the amount, so he'll need to speak with each one individually. Taking a bite of cake, Daein asks if Gil-soo is the Royal Guild manager, which he confirms. The man starts explaining his guild, but Daein interrupts again, bidding him goodbye. Gil-soo is completely confused by his words. Daein recalls that soon the guild will merge with another. Daein asks the others what they're willing to pay him. The man in the back, shocking Gil-soo, offers 1 billion for his entry. With that, the other representatives start raising their offers, even reaching 1 billion and 200. As everyone offers in high amounts, Daein wonders to himself what Black Hound could offer him. Suddenly, someone offers 2 billion and promises the best base salary, incentives, and commissions as well. It's the woman sitting across from him, Baek Young-mi, manager of the White House Guild. He recalls that this is a newly formed guild, but it will become one of Korea's top 3 guilds in 10 years. Maybe that's why they're recruiting so aggressively. Daein tells her to stay, asking the others to leave, but to leave their business cards behind. After everyone leaves, they sit in silence, not saying a word. She says she saw his videos fighting monsters and that he fights skillfully for a newly awakened individual. Daein notices that she kindly tells him she did some research on his background. As she places an envelope on the table, Young-mi says that either he's a genius or he acquired those skills before awakening. She states that she wants to guide him as the future of White House. Daein notices that the contract terms are beyond anything he could have imagined in his past life. He asks Young-mi if he can add a few more things. She simply agrees. She's confused as she watches him write without saying anything. She starts laughing, saying Daein is very funny, but he insists he's not joking. His demands are 4-day work week, guaranteed end times, and the right to refuse long-term missions. Extremely irritated, Young-mi asks if this is some kind of big joke. Coldly, he replies that these are his terms. Looking at him, the manager asks what makes him so confident. Proudly, Daein says that if they make the deal, she won't be disappointed. Unexpectedly, she stands, slamming her hands on the table. Young-mi says she'll return with a revised contract in a few days. Trying to charm him, she suggests they have a drink instead of coffee next time. He remains indifferent, watching Young-mi leave. Daein thinks to himself that he shouldn't get involved with her after all. She's the daughter of the guild master. He stands up after deciding he should register as a superhuman. He arrives at the Seoul Disaster Management Branch. In the Superhuman Cooperation Team room, someone informs him that the manager isn't available, and as a newcomer, he can't proceed yet. He tells the receptionist he's in a hurry and asks if there's another way. She says she'll try calling the manager first. Daein notes mentally that the guy on the phone is likely the most important one there, so he should move quickly. As she guides him, the receptionist asks if he has any specific abilities. Daein tells her he only has physical enhancement, nothing special, though this is obviously a lie. Since there are no magic measuring devices yet, they can only learn about abilities if you demonstrate them. She takes him to a room, saying they need to continue with the superhuman test, and asks him to lift the weight. Daein places his hand on the bar as mana flows through his veins. With just one hand, he lifts the weight effortlessly. The woman, astonished, asks if he's really a superhuman. Daein asks if he looks like a fake. She hands him a temporary superhuman certificate, and he thanks her. The woman informs him that they'll contact him when the official certificate is ready, and Daein just thanks her. Someone arrives, asking if Yujin is still there. The receptionist stands up, calling for the team leader. Daein feels mentally uncomfortable and decides he should leave quietly. As he walks past the man, the newly awakened one identifies him as Ju Sang-wook, the head of the cooperation team. As he leaves, Daein says he probably won't return there. The leader asks the receptionist if that's the new superhuman. She tells him that he's Daein, the one they discussed on the phone. He realizes that this is the super rookie. Daein was in the contamination control control zone. It's an area abandoned due to monsters. This is where Gaia, a world of magic and swords, will collide with Earth. This will be the only control zone opened in Korea. Extremely pleased, Dayan says that after his first payment, he'll buy this territory. Owning the gate will make him a fortune. As he crouches down, rummaging through his bag, he says he needs to unload all his baggage and then hunt some monsters. Surprisingly, he hears a voice saying that if they don't want to die, they should leave. The voice warns again that if they come closer, they will die. Dayan wonders if this is the language of Gaia. Looking in the direction the sound is coming from, Dayan starts walking towards it as his body becomes transparent. His ability is concealment, allowing him to blend in and hide in the surroundings. This is why in his past life, he was forced into countless reconnaissance, espionage, and assassination missions. As he moves swiftly, he declares that he doesn't plan to go through such hardships again. Still running, Dayan wonders if that voice is being chased by something. It's a little girl surrounded by 3 men, warning them once again. Extremely angry, the girl summons a large fireball in her hands. They're fascinated that she's superhuman, saying it's amazing. However, frightening the child, her magic fades. One of them says they'll sell her for a great price. Dayan recalls that in Gaia, they call abilities superpowers and wonders if this girl is a dimensional refugee. One of the men approaches her, asking her to stop resisting, saying they'll buy her something delicious. Dayan is surprised to see his tattoo. It's the symbol of the criminal faction Red Snake, and he wonders if they're also involved in human trafficking. Dayan remarks that since he's low on mana, he should end his concealment, wondering if he should help the girl. He grips his knife firmly. Unexpectedly for the criminals, he stabs one of them in the heart. Dayan tosses his dagger in the air, catching it again and repositioning it. Without them even realizing what's happening, Dayan slashes the throats of both. The little girl, watching everything, starts trembling, horrified by the sight. With her still trembling, Dayan, a bit awkwardly, clears his throat to get her attention. He asks if she's from Gaia and says he has a few questions. The girl, surprised, asks if he understands her language. But suddenly, as usual, someone's stomach growls. But this time, it's the girl's. With some difficulty, he asks if the little girl likes meat. After eating, the little girl happily thanks him for saving her, promising she will repay the favor. Grumbling, he asks how much she can eat on her own, while she, confused, asks what he means. He changes the subject, asking if she was the only one who managed to cross the dimensional portal. The child hesitates, and Dayan explains further, asking where she was before crossing the portal and where her home is. Head down, the little girl says she can't tell him. He then asks her age, and she says she can't share that either. Dayan wonders why she can't tell him anything, but his thoughts are interrupted as the little girl asks him for help. She says she knows nothing about this place, but despite him being a stranger, she feels he can help her. The girl mentions she can control fire and forms small flames in her hand. A bit disappointed, she adds that she can't manage it very well anyway. Coldly, he tells her he has no time to raise a child and certainly no obligation to take care of her, which makes her sad. But he adds that, in any case, there's only 1 month left and she can stay with him for that time. Dayan tells her he will teach her his language and basic common sense, but in exchange, he will expect her to help with some chores. Smiling, the girl asks if she can really stay, while he mentally admits he's already starting to feel irritated. Suddenly, he hands her a stack of dishes and asks her to wash them. The little girl, excited, introduces herself as Lily and says she will work hard in the future. She asks where she should wash them, and he points her in that direction. Dayan notes to himself that her name sounds familiar. Surprised, he recalls the fire user named Lily, remembering that in 10 years, a red-haired woman will burn half of Seoul, the Fire Witch, one of the 6 calamities. But he convinces himself that Lily only resembles her and certainly isn't the witch. Watching the cheerful child, Dayan comments that she was raised to become a disaster, and that perhaps he has prevented a calamity. As they walk through a market, the little girl asks where they are going. He tells her they are going to the market and will make a special meal today, which makes her extremely excited. Dayan asks the butcher if he has any raptor loin, while Lily gazes at the large amount of meat. He explains that they started selling monster meat due to food shortages. Dayan says that this meat will become a mana-rich nutritional ingredient and that people won't be able to live without it in the future. They leave with an ample amount of meat thanks to the butcher who gave extra to feed the little girl with a rumbling stomach. Passing by a store, Dayan says they need to buy clothes for the girl and tells Lily to pick something, making her even happier. She chooses a dress, saying she wants to wear it. Dayan simply watches her choice in silence. After a moment, incredulously, she's now dressed in athletic clothes. Dayan says it would be uncomfortable to wear something like that in the ruins, while Lily remains shocked. Then we see a bubbling pot, and he says that today's special dish is something great to increase their mana. A bit nervous and disgusted, Lily asks if they're really going to eat that. Dayan says it's good for their bodies, so they have to eat it. But she changes her mind when she smells something extremely appetizing. Holding out a tray of chicken, Dayan says that it was supposed to be dessert, but they can eat it now. She takes a drumstick and tastes chicken for the first time. The little girl is delighted to find out it's delicious. She says it's really tasty and wants to eat only that from now on. Extremely annoyed, he asks Lily if she shouldn't mix everything together since she'll be eating both. The little girl pleads that it's not necessary. Dayan concedes that he too is picky with food, but in any case, the soup isn't so bad that he can't eat it. Irritated, he mentally confesses that if he had regressed, he'd be eating at a high-end restaurant right now. Lily complains that her tongue feels numb, but Dayan scolds her to stop whining after eating everything. He stands up, saying he'll be busy, and tells the little girl to wash the dishes and not to disturb him. Dayan sits down and begins to meditate. He says he's practicing the Great Heart of the Sea technique, which enhances resilience and allows for more flexible mana use. He recalls that in his previous life, he used to train every time he returned to Earth. Dayan admits that he practiced this technique consistently, but his progress was never as good as it is now. With a smile, he notes that if he continues eating mana-rich foods and practicing, he might become stronger than before. Unexpectedly for Lily, who was watching him, Dayan opens his eyes, saying his stomach is already rumbling. Excitedly, the little girl asks if he's hungry and if he wants some chicken. A bit embarrassed, he realizes she was watching him the whole time. Finally, they're eating the mana-enriched food while she screams that she hates it, and he silently agrees. After 2 days pass, his mana has clearly increased. He notes that at this pace, he'll be able to hunt for treasures soon. Yummy calls Daein, asking if he planned to contact her and if he wasn't worried about her well-being. Mentally, he admits he completely forgot about the guild, asking her if the contract was properly revised. She hesitates before answering, which makes Daein assume there's a problem. Yummy says she managed to convince the CEO, but he requested a trial test. She says she'll find another way if he waits a bit longer, but Daein agrees to the test under certain conditions. At the White House Guild headquarters, someone comments on how cute the little girl is. Daein introduces Lily to Youngie, saying she's his younger half-sister. He explains that Lily grew up abroad and doesn't speak Korean well, so she'll stay with him for now. The child asks who Youngie is, calling her pretty, but Daein only says she's someone who gives them money. Lily interprets that money means chicken and calls Youngie a good person. Youngie informs him that her guild doesn't interfere in superhumans' private lives. A man welcomes him to the White House Guild, introducing himself as the representative, Bak Chang-soo. As they shake hands, he apologizes for the inconvenience, but says this is an important procedure. Daein says it's no problem. The man informs him that if he passes the test, his initial payment will be doubled and asks if Daein agrees. Unleashing his golden mana, he asks if Daein is really worth it while staring at him intensely. The awakened one mentally admits that only a true monster could apply such intense pressure using just his mana. He states that he's not the same as before, summoning his blue mana, even surprising Lily. With a smile, he forms a mana shield around himself, saying he will prove his worth. The man is greatly surprised to see this. Turning to the manager, he asks for the contract to be rewritten. Shocked, she says the contract they agreed on was already revised. But he says they should triple the initial amount, and if he passes all tests, they should add another 20 billion won. Daein notes that if he passes all the tests, his initial payment will be 26 billion. In the guild's training center, the man informs him that the test will be a one-on-one combat against 3 guild members. Since this is only a test, you should be careful not to get hurt. The man introduces him to the first challenger, Wang Jang-hook, a member of the guild's first division. The manager asks him what weapon he'd like, but Daein calmly says a watch is enough, leaving his opponent very irritated. He notes that it hasn't been long since Daein awakened, yet he's already so arrogant. Chang-soo then gives the signal to start, and Daein says he'll let him go first. Holding his sword, Jang-hook says he'll help him find God. Daein, not understanding, wonders what's wrong with this guy. He recalls hearing about Jang's acceleration ability, which gradually increases his speed as long as he keeps moving. And because of that, he must win before his opponent gets too fast. Jang quickly begins running around Daein as if generating a tornado. Daein admits he anticipated the attack immediately, though it's unexpected. Some people watching from above comment on how extreme their colleague's speed is, saying it'd be impossible to beat him. The guild manager feels a bit nervous, while the representative remains calm. His opponent starts laughing, saying he'll end it right now. He appears behind Daein, preparing to strike, but unexpectedly, Daein senses his presence and turns around. Daein punches him with the watch on his hand, saying those who let down their guard are easier to handle. Watching his opponent fall to the ground, he mentally acknowledges that he was prepared to take damage if he couldn't strike. Lily cheers, saying he won, while the manager looks surprised. Proudly smiling, Daein asks who's next. The guild representative approaches him, saying that it was amazing, but Daein asks if his opponent is alright. The man informs him that his opponent doesn't appear to be in any life-threatening danger and should recover after a few days of rest. Smiling, he says that it's all thanks to Daein. Daein asks if he's serious, while mentally confessing that if he hadn't controlled his strength, his opponent's head would have exploded. Looking up, he notices a few people watching him, also realizing that he has already fulfilled the requirements to join the guild. With a grin, he thinks he should enjoy the rest of the test, leaving everyone surprised by his reaction. The little girl, somewhat scared, asks why he suddenly looks like a pervert, which makes Daein annoyed. In another training area, Youngie explains that the White House's first division consists of 6 teams of 5 members each. With that, she announces that his next opponent will be the leader of the 6th team in the first division. Daein remembers that this was one of the guild officials who quietly observed his last battle. Ignoring his attempt at a greeting, Daein raises his guard, saying he's ready. A bit awkwardly, the official says he's ready too, as he draws his sword. The bell signaling the start of the battle rings. Daein dashes toward his opponent. Preparing to strike, Daein positions himself to land a punch with a watch in his hand. With a certain ease, Young manages to block his attack with a shield. Attempting to counter, the official swings his sword in a blow, but Daein manages to dodge. Convinced, the team leader assumes this is his chance and grips his shield firmly. He tries to strike him with the shield. Unexpectedly, Daein manages to dodge while making a hand gesture. Using 3 fingers, he strikes with a move called the Eagle Claw Fist. Defending against his attack, the official asks if he learned martial arts before awakening. Again, attempting to counterattack, the man swings his sword in a blow. However, Daein ducks, dodging the attack once more. He stops mid-motion, surprising his opponent. Throwing his body backward, he delivers another blow called the Slanted Iron Mountain. Yang is even more surprised as he looks back. The impact of the attack was so strong that the man was sent flying. Looking at his opponent, Daein feels a bit nervous. The official, extremely angry, admits that he really is very strong, while the frightening aura emanates from his body. Looking at Yang, Daein says he tried to hide his strength until the last test, but apparently he'll have to finish everything as quickly as possible. Remembering the guild representative, Daein wonders if that scary old man wants him to show everything he's got. Touching his shield, the official says he wants him on his team, thinking they'd make great partners. Daein, a bit annoyed, asks who decides that. Looking at the manager, the official asks if the winner couldn't decide that. The old man simply nods affirmatively. Daein calls out to the manager, saying that if he wins, he wants the position of team leader. The officials watching the battle start to discuss whether that would be unrealistic or too high a bet. He says he wants to be a team leader and will recruit the members himself. They'll also handle missions on their own. Mentally, he assumes he wanted to get these things slowly, but by defeating a team leader, he won't need to. The representative with a serious expression agrees. Looking at Daein, the old man says that if he loses, he'll have his entry entry fee and double the contract period. Dayan accepts without a second thought, leaving the official confused, wondering if he really thinks he can beat him. With an insane look, Young says that Youngmi likes him and only sent him away because she's interested in him. Dayan remembers that he'll cause a great commotion in the future and will be expelled from the guild, so he asks the official to go clean his room. Young, irritated, starts to say he's not a pervert, telling him to shut up. The official activates his barbarian mode, granting him a physical boost, while he says he'll teach Dayan the true strength of a leader. The man lunges at Dayan. Gripping the watch firmly, he uses the deep sea technique. He uses the punishment fist, telling his opponent to block it. Dayan lands a direct hit to his opponent's stomach, causing several trees to fall behind him from the impact. Both the representative and the manager look at the scene in shock. While Young, with his broken shield on the ground, everyone asks if the newcomer really managed to beat him. Sitting on the ground, Dayan assumes that making money is very tiring and stressful. With his arm trembling, he concludes that his body is still very weak and all his strength was drained in a single strike. He begins to meditate in the middle of the training field, preparing for the next battle. But Dayan soon opens his eyes, realizing someone is approaching. It was the manager congratulating him and calling him the leader of the 7th team. Smiling, he tells her that it's good to hear that. Standing up, Dayan concludes that he already has 10 billion guaranteed according to the contract, but it might be good to look to 20 billion. Looking at the manager, he asks who his next opponent is, while the little girl asks if he's really going to fight again. The guild representative says it will be him, and that he honestly expected the team leader to win. The manager says excitedly that for the next test, he has no choice but to conduct it himself. Both Dayan and the manager look at Chang-Su in confusion, with Dayan mentally concluding that he won't win against this monster. Dayan coldly says he will forfeit the 3rd test, leaving the representative extremely indignant and disappointed. Chang-Su tries to convince him, saying that if he can hold him off for 3 minutes, he'll give him 30 billion, but Dayan insists that he can't. Concerned about the guild's financial situation, the manager says they need to close the contract, leaving the representative a bit embarrassed. The contract states that a 10 billion bonus for victories was allocated to the leader of the 7th team, Lim Dayan. The manager asks Dayan if he realizes these are particularly good conditions, and he says he's excited to work. Yami asks him where his team is, and Dayan says he will recruit each member himself, but he would like to make one now. The manager says that's possible, but asks who it would be. He says it's a talented person not tied to any guild. He calls out the little girl's name, leaving her confused. She looks at him, asking if he's really calling her, and Dayan tells the child to make the biggest fireball she can. She sighs deeply, saying she's still hungry. He says they'll give her 3 whole chickens. Lily runs to the center of the room, saying that's a promise. The little girl starts summoning a large fireball above her head, shouting that she's getting 3 chickens. Surprised, the manager asks if his half-sister is also superhuman, and he confirms, saying he intends to have her on his team. Dayan says she can manipulate fire in a way that causes no harm around her, and that she learned it in just a few days. He starts discussing Lily's entry bonus and suggests they start with 3 billion. The little girl, with a frightening look, asks where her chickens are. He hands her the chickens, and it's announced that the signing bonus for Team 7's Lily was 50 billion. Yanni informs him that the entire building belongs to the guild, offering training centers, private accommodations, and command centers. As they walk down the hallway, the manager asks Dayan if the facilities aren't impressive. Entering an armory, Dayan admits that this is actually a bit impressive. She adds that if he wants a specific weapon, they can make it within a week, and he says he'll take some temporary items. Dayan concludes that this will be enough use for a while, and that for now, he'll only use these 2 daggers. He asks if they've seen everything necessary. She says that since it's his first day, they can conclude the tour for now, but suddenly Chang-Su starts calling Dayan. He informs him there's a message from the command center. He says that all teams are currently out in the field, and that even though it's his first day, they'd like to request his help. A bit disheartened, he mentally assumes that he expected to go home early on his first day. The man says that if it weren't for the urgency of the situation, they could even play a game, but Dayan nervously asks where he should go. Upon arriving at the location, Dayan asks about the situation and is informed that a horde of giant snail monsters is emerging from a portal. Around them, several awakened fighters try to battle the monsters, but they're caught in the slime spat out by the creatures. Dayan says it's a complete mess, but that even so, most of the monsters seem under control. He receives orders to capture 3 of them intact for examination, and he agrees while Lily complains about the smell. He explains that the monsters themselves are extremely weak, but when hit hard, they release a terrible odor. Feeling the stench, the little girl asks if she really has to fight these things. Dayan tells her he blocked his sense of smell with mana. She asks him to teach her the technique, and he explains that it may not work immediately, but with continuous effort. To his surprise, she says it worked, and that she no longer smells anything, while he feels proud of her talent. Looking around, he notices that no one has managed to capture a sample since the monsters explode. As he runs toward the monsters, he says he needs to try capturing one now. While running, he notices a small snail climbing up a tree. Dayan heads toward the tree and kicks it, so the monster falls. The creature tumbles down in his direction, trying to attack him. He positions himself, and the palms of his hands begin to glow blue. He uses the Tagik technique, throwing the monster backward. Dizzy from the whirlpool effect, the monster falls to the ground, unable to understand what happened. With the creature completely defenseless, Dayan approaches. Watching him, Lily starts begging him to teach her this technique too. Coolly, he says that if she wants it, she'll have to pay 100 billion. Shocked, she asks how many chickens make up 100 billion. He informs the command center that they collected the samples and will hand them to the collection team before leaving. She asks if he's nervous or needs to discuss anything since it's his first mission, but he calmly replies that he doesn't. Suddenly, someone asks if he's part of White House. The man approaches with his companions, saying he's never seen him before, Dad, and hides Lily behind him. He mentions that he heard White House recruited a new awakened one and promoted him to team leader. This man is the leader of Team 5 of Black Hound, and he asks if the technique Dayan used before is one of his specialties. Dayan recalls that this was Jang Hyun, his boss in his previous life. He asks if Hyun has a problem. He explains that the snails are exploding everywhere, making it impossible for them them to collect an adequate sample. Dayan asks what he means by that. The man, growing increasingly irritated, asks how old Dayan is to not understand his words. Other members from different guilds approach, suggesting they all share information to move forward together. The White House manager advises Dayan to refuse and file a formal complaint with the guild later. Looking at everyone, he says he's witnessed this many times before, and that if he doesn't let it go, they'll attack everyone from his guild. He throws the bag with the monsters and tells them to take it, while the manager yells his name. He admits that he knew this would happen from the start, but suddenly, he begins walking around the bag. He says they can have it if they get past him. All the members of the rival guilds look at him extremely irritated by his actions. His former boss takes the lead, saying it seems like that's what he wants. Dayan whispers to Lily that as soon as he signals, she should set the area on fire to confuse them. The girl, with a chilling look, asks if he really wants to burn everyone. He says no, after all, killing them could complicate things, and she should just set fire around the area. Hyung tells Dayan to get up, calling it a re-education from a senior. Unexpectedly, to everyone's surprise, the portal starts to grow larger, emitting red lightning. With that, a giant snail begins to emerge. They turn their attention to the monster, saying it's huge and that they need to prepare for battle. Everyone leaves Dayan behind as they run toward the monster. The snail is extraordinarily large, with multiple tentacles. One of the awakened ones tells Dayan not to get involved, as they could accidentally hit him and won't take responsibility. He says he understands while grabbing the bag with the monsters. Dayan tells the little girl they should take this to the car and come back, and she just nods. As they attack the creature's tentacles, which also counterattacks, they ask why it doesn't retreat and what kind of power this is. One of the awakened fighters is captured by the snail, while his comrade shouts for them to cut the tentacles. The White House manager tells the team leader that he must return and fight. She says he needs to land at least one blow to claim the loot. Smiling, he assures her not to worry. Looking back, he says that with their current power, they can't handle the monster. Someone shouts for the tanks to handle the tentacles around them first, but someone else yells that their shields are melting. Dayan's former boss tells the tanks to move back and prepare a long-range attack. They start to run while he shouts that this creature is entirely different from the smaller ones. Dayan and the little girl just observe, with him saying that they'll only get involved once everyone else falls. While the man runs with his arm petrified, someone else yells at him, urging him to hurry. The man, a member of Black Hound, apologizes to everyone as he runs. Some awakened ones notice that their weapons are melting and that the monster keeps growing larger by the moment. Someone screams for everyone to get away from the monster as it attacks the awakened ones. The man with the petrified arm begs for someone to take him along. Once again, he's yelled at, told to escape on his own. A tentacle from the snail grabs him. As the snail draws him toward its mouth, he screams for help. Suddenly, someone cuts the tentacle, telling him that people like them aren't comrades. It was Dayan who saved him, and the man thanks him. Looking at the man on the ground, Dayan remarks that that's not how he should be using his attributes. Dayan tells him that if he wants to learn the correct way to use them, he should seek him out later. He then tells Lily that they should get started, which makes the girl excited. Suddenly, a massive fire ignites, leaving everyone nearby shocked and unsure of what caused it. The guild manager warns him not to be reckless and says the support team will arrive in 5 minutes. He says it would be better if their guild could monopolize the fight. After all, another guild might arrive in 5 minutes. Someone reports that entering the area is impossible due to the fire and orders all drones to return. Yummy shouts at him, saying it's too dangerous and that monopolizing it isn't that important. Dayan reassures her that she doesn't need to worry, but Yummy insists that if he returns injured, there will be consequences. He explains that this monster is an anomaly with a separate entry in the encyclopedia. To prepare for unexpected situations, he memorized all the strategies. Dayan mentions that the monster is vulnerable to heat, and its movements will slow down as the area is set on fire. He leaps toward the monster, telling Lily to stay safe. He explains that the monster's tentacles regenerate quickly, so he'll need the girl's help. He circles the giant snail, slicing its tentacles as he goes. Following Dayan's instructions, Lily sets fire to the severed tentacles. As a result, she manages to ignite all the burnt tentacles, causing pain to the monster. He praises her, and she feels incredibly proud. After a while, many tentacles have already been severed. Dayan recalls that once all the monster's tentacles are cut off, it will hide inside its shell to heal. As the encyclopedia described, the entrance to its shell is now blocked. Holding a type of spike in his hand, he says it's time to use what they brought in the car. Dayan explains that the snail's shell is extremely tough, so they'll break it from the outside at its weakest point. Imbuing the large spike with mana, he begins positioning it. With great strength, he starts hammering it in with his dagger. Now the little girl watches everything, feeling extremely bored. Outside, the other awakened ones wonder what's happening behind the fire. The man who can petrify his body recalls Dayan's words, suggesting that there's a better way to use his attributes. Dayan sighs, extremely tired. Finally, he has managed to drive in all the spikes. He says that after positioning them all, they should strike the shell's center with their strongest possible blow. With that, he launches himself toward the shell, channeling mana throughout his body. He uses a technique called Ocean Martial Arts, Thunder Fist. He lands a powerful strike, releasing waves of mana around him. Even he feels the impact of his own attack. All the spikes begin connecting through the blue lightning. In a flash, the entire shell shatters, exposing the monster inside. However, his attack was so powerful that his arm is now completely injured, causing Dayan immense pain. He notes that in testing, it seemed that using this technique more than twice a day was too much. Now his body is so weakened that he can't properly use his martial arts. Lily starts kicking him, asking if he's paralyzed. In pain, Dayan tells her she should help him in situations like this. He says at least they managed to defeat the monster. The little girl asks if she should lower the fire wall, but he says no. Dayan begins collecting pieces of the monster's tentacles, saying they're very nutritious and tender. Lily imagines they're like snail drumsticks, but Dayan explains that this is a perfect ingredient for mana nourishment. While Dayan finishes gathering the meat, the leader of Team 2 approaches, saying he heard about the situation and wants to help. Desperately, Dayan tells him to wait and says he'll extinguish the fire first. Then he can come in. Dayan searches frantically for the one thing he'd missed while the Team 2 leader urges him not to overdo it. Grabbing the last piece, he tells Lily to put out the fire. She opens a path through the flames, leaving all the awakened ones asleep. astonished by the sight. The man approaches him, asking if Dayan really defeated the monster alone. He replies that it was a fierce fight, but he was lucky to win. All the other awakened ones who had troubled him earlier wonder how he managed to do what even all of them together couldn't. Putting a hand on his shoulder, Dayan asks the leader of Team 2 to handle the cleanup. The man agrees and tells him to go home. The manager, extremely annoyed, tells him that if his injuries are serious, he should go to the guild for treatment, which leaves him a bit nervous. Lily, looking irritated, says she's tired and hungry, and Dayan agrees, saying she worked very hard today. Handing her various delicious dishes, Dayan tells her they can eat as much as they want, making the little girl very happy. Extremely excited, Lily raises her arms, saying she'll catch another snail. After drinking some beer, Dayan slams his glass on the table, cursing, saying this is what they call tasty. Not fully understanding, Lily wonders if she's supposed to curse every time she eats something. Suddenly, to Dayan's surprise, Lily shouts a curse word. Wiping his mouth, Dayan tells the child that it's a bad word, and she asks why he uses it. Then, after a while, they were once again in the ruins. Dayan meditated while reflecting on how he felt after using the ocean martial art technique. He said he felt dead, but it was obviously because he had worked so hard and even drank alcohol. While grabbing his phone to check how many calls he had received, he mentioned that it was an emergency technique and that you shouldn't overuse it. Answering the call, the manager began to yell at him, asking why he hadn't answered before. He told her that he had felt intense pain and needed to rest as he had worked a lot the previous day. Awkwardly, she apologized and asked if he was okay. Dayan said he was feeling better and asked her what happened. Yami informed him that she was trying to officially form Team 7 and wanted his opinion. She explained that she needed many members to form a team: a filming team, a support equipment team, a medical team, an operator to report to the control room, and a secretary. He mentally acknowledged that the success of the team depended on good members and told the manager she should assign a few people. Dayan praised her for having a good eye for talented people, which left her a little surprised. Yami said she understood since it was her who recruited him. While she tried to invite him out, Dayan interrupted her, saying he wanted to recruit a superhuman. He told her he wanted Wang Guho and that she should get in touch with him. The representative told him he should take a 3-day break. Dayan said it was fine, but Chang Su informed him that it would be best if he completed the mission after all the team members were assigned. Dayan noted that a few days of rest would do him good. The representative told him to rest as he was the future of the guild. The representative began inviting him to play a game, but Dayan changed the subject by asking if Lily was hungry, and then he hung up. Excited, she asked if they were going to eat chicken, but he, with a sinister smile, said he would make something tastier than chicken. He explained that unlike last time, they now had fresh ingredients and even the soft meat of the snail, including the internal core. He made a soup that seemed to come straight from the underworld, saying it might taste strange now, but he had put many good things in it. Extremely disappointed, Lily said she had eaten too much chicken and was still full. Dayan, smiling, said she could do whatever she wanted. He began eating, saying it was marvelous, and that there might not be any left by dinner, leaving Lily extremely curious. When Dayan grabbed the pot to eat more, Lily interrupted, saying she would eat it all. After taking her first spoonful and realizing it tasted horrible, Dayan reminded her that she said she would eat everything. After finishing, the little girl was extremely sad, saying she was so happy yesterday, but Dayan told her he would make more delicious things. Angry, she said she no longer believed him, but Dayan told her there would be pork belly for dinner, explaining that it was more expensive than chicken. Fixing herself in her chair, she said eating it could make life more enjoyable. Dayan wondered where she had learned such things. He said they needed to digest before eating anything else, and that they would go on a treasure hunt, making Lily excited again. Dayan explained that the monsters who survived the first portal were living in their own territories. One of these territories was a village infested with orcs. There, they kept several artifacts from another dimension. Looking at the village, he said he hadn't obtained it in his past life, but in this one, he would take what was inside the statue. Dayan noticed that there were about 200 orcs, and even though his body had recovered, it would still be too many to fight. He explained that he would enter stealthily, and that Lily should set the fire as soon as she saw his signal, leaving the girl confused, not understanding what signal that would be. Dayan said that after he entered, if a torch fell, she should set the fire at the entrance, but not too big so it wouldn't affect the statue. Dayan used his stealth ability to enter the village. While he entered, Lily watched from above. As he passed the guards, Dayan wondered if there was anyone strong enough to see him. He noticed that about 10 orcs were guarding the statue. As he grabbed his dagger, he said he could do this alone. He wielded his blade, eyeing the opponents, but his attention was drawn by a mutated orc chief. He realized that this was the orc that had shown ridiculous strength in the previous attack. Dayan picked up a stone from the ground, deciding it was better to stick with the plan. He then threw the stone at one of the torches, causing it to fall. Lily, watching, realized that this was the signal Dayan had told her about. Surprising the guards, she began to increase the fire of the torches. The mutated orc ordered that all of them go to the entrance. Dayan said that now he only needed to break the statue and get what he needed. Unexpectedly, a purple aura appeared. It was the mutated orc who was right behind Dayan. Without even looking back, Dayan decided that he couldn't fight him since he was too strong and that he should just flee. He passed through the entrance as the little girl covered it with fire. Dayan admitted that it wasn't worth trying to be discreet once he had been seen. Surprised, Lily asked if he was exposed, to which Dayan replied affirmatively and told her to run. The monsters kept talking in the forest, searching for them. Lily and Dayan were sitting in the middle of a forest. Dayan wondered why it was so difficult when this should have been the easiest place. But suddenly, Lily said she recognized this place. She pointed to a cave, saying she had come out of it after crossing the portal. The little girl explained that those strange uncles had also been there trying to catch her. He wondered if the Red Snake faction had a hideout near a monster-filled area. Dayan began to pet her head, mentally affirming that if this worked, it would be beneficial. With a smile, he asked if they should check it out. She, a little frightened, asked if they needed to go in and said she didn't want to. Dayan handed her a radio communicator, telling her to stay hidden and to alert him if anything happened. He began entering the cave quietly. While walking, he activated his stealth ability again. Dayan passed by an armed soldier, thinking this organization wasn't so small. He noticed that the security seemed to be secret and wondered why they set up an outpost next to an orc village. Entering a bit further, he noticed people working and wondered what they were doing. He noticed one of the men holding a package with a white powder. He wondered if this could be something called serpent. He explains that this is a drug made from plants from another world. Its addictive power has caused the death or disability of countless people. The police have been investigating for a long time, but have never found the origin, and apparently, it's here. He notices that one package weighs about 50 kilograms, and while there's no certainty, it's possible that there are hundreds of billions in there. Someone was arguing with a soldier, scolding him for not meeting the quota. The boss says he ordered the soldier to recruit tools as quickly as possible, while the soldier apologized. Suddenly, some members of the Red Snake are surprised by something. Everyone is confused by the fact that an entire shipment of drugs has disappeared, while Dan passes by them using his skill. Outside, Dan asks where the child is. She steps out of a bush and asks if it's over. He says they're just getting started and tells her they're going to play hide and seek. She enters the place where he was hiding the drugs, and he warns her that if she keeps hesitating, she'll lose the game. The soldier exits the cave, saying that he has found them, while Dan tells Lily that she needs to show her abilities. With that, he looks back and says he'll take care of everything. The soldiers begin shooting in their direction, but Dan is able to dodge, creating some distance. As he dodges the bullets, Dan thinks they shoot well, while the soldier wonders why he isn't getting hit. Dan curses them as he stops in front of the monsters. With a smile, he says there's something strange here. Suddenly, all the orcs start screaming as they look at the soldiers. They begin trembling as they stare directly at the monsters. He says that enough is enough and that Lily can come out now. Dan plants himself firmly on the ground. He throws the drugs toward the monsters. All the members of the Red Snake look at him, asking what he's doing. The confused monsters look at the box coming toward them. It falls in front of one of them, who gets curious. One of the soldiers asks his superior what they should do. Extremely angry, he tells them to finish off everyone. Dan activates his skill again, disappearing from the battlefield as the soldiers shoot at the monsters. Suddenly, a large paw slams into the ground with a loud thud. It was the mutant orc who was able to stop all the bullets with his body. The superior orders that everyone focus on the one with white hair first, but the orc easily kills one of them. The little girl asks him when everything will end since she's already hungry. Dan says that things don't always go as smoothly. Looking at the situation, Dan says that apparently he's almost done and wonders if he should start cleaning up now. One of the soldiers is lying on the ground begging for help. The large mutant orc cuts him in half, yelling and raising his sword, but suddenly he grunts in pain. Dan had pierced his chest while praising the monster for doing a good job cleaning up all the trash. The mutant orc falls to his knees on the ground while Dan pulls the blade out of his chest. The other orcs tremble as Dan says that after taking down the boss, the rest isn't much of a problem. He mentally assumes that it won't take long for them to be destroyed, while the orcs run away in desperation. After a while, Dan is already in the village, breaking the statue. He finally manages to open its chest and places his hand inside. He retrieves the Guardian's bracelets, which have a special ability that, when consuming mana, summons a protective barrier. Putting the bracelet on his wrist, he notices that it lives up to its name, even restoring the mana he just used. Lily asks if this is the treasure, which Dan confirms, and he asks her to come over to him. Dan places the bracelet on the child's wrist. She's surprised, wondering why he's doing this. He explains that it's a bracelet that grants magical protection. The little girl asks if that's true and notices it's the same as the one he's wearing. While taking the chief's leather to use as a shield, Dan says they'll eat later, but for now, he needs to go back to the cave. The little girl asks why he's going there again. Dan says he'll tell her later, but right now, he needs Lily to burn everything. She asks if they're going to eat, and he says no, but the food will taste better. Hearing this, she gets motivated and begins summoning a fireball. Throwing her attack, Lily burns the entire orc village. She burns everything while shouting that she's hungry and wants something delicious. Looking at the girl's power, Dan realizes he'd be in danger if he left her without food. The soldiers begin shooting, saying that the intruder was here. Dan summons his magical barrier, telling Lily to watch closely, since her bracelet has the same ability. He explains that if she gets used to it, she can change the shape of the shield, while the little girl summons one as well. Lily says she can just use it to attack her enemies while crushing the soldiers on the ground. Dan is even more impressed with such talent. While she plays with her shield power, one of the guards apologizes, saying he'll tell them everything he knows about the organization. With a dark look and smile, Dan says he doesn't need that and asks if this is where the vault is. After an hour, they leave the cave while it explodes behind them. Smiling, Dan says that, as expected from a secret hideout, there was a lot of money, and now he has many uses for all of it. He tells Lily that she can take off the shield after the explosion is over. She asks, confused, what would happen if they escaped. Dan then explains that only 35 people are left, and they have nowhere to go. They're just desperate to live their way. Calling one of them Steamed, he orders him to follow him, leaving the man confused. The man keeps asking why he's being called Steamed. Dan says that apparently the man likes steam, so that's why he calls him that, and tells him to follow the little girl to her tent. He orders everyone to present themselves at the police station, while they wonder if they'll be freed. With a deadly look, Dan says that if they don't understand, he'll beat them until they do. Afraid, they all say they'll surrender. At the police station, the officers begin asking what they know about the control area and the manipulation of plants. Dan tells them to go to the police station and make a statement mentioning him and Lily. Dan concludes that in this life, Kim must have some connection to him. Leaving the place, he says that anyway, Lily worked hard today and he should buy something delicious for her. She was with the former Red Snake member while throwing a tantrum, saying she was hungry. Frightened by the child, he says he doesn't understand what she's saying. Angry, the little girl says that Dan promised something better than chicken. He hands the bag to Lily, saying it's this, noticing that it's soft. She asks if it's not snail again. Dan asks the man to make a steamed rice cake, and Steamed just agrees and starts making it. He begins the recipe by placing 2 slices of well-cooked pork belly with roasted garlic and chopped green onions. Then he wraps it in perilla and lettuce leaves, asking them to eat it all in one bite. Dan was about to tell the little girl to eat everything before it gets cold, but Lily had already eaten and was fascinated, saying that it was really good. While not returning to his work, Dan buys the land around his tent. Returning to his tent, Dan, lying in a hammock, admits that he's getting tired of this, leaving his new subordinate hopeful. He begins to say that he has been working hard on building building a wooden cabin and that his brother should trust him. Steam shares that he worked as a mason for 3 years, as a cleaner for 2, and as a cook for 3. Dayan says that they lived well for 3 years, while Lily compliments him, saying his rice cakes are great. Dayan thinks that now the former Red Snake member is a hostage because of his rice cakes. Since he doesn't know martial arts, he can't escape. Dayan thinks that Steam will serve him for the next 3 years until he retires, and after that, he'll give him a big rest. The manager shares that she will take on the role of secretary for the 7th team since they are new and need someone who knows the guild well. Dayan asks if it's really temporary and if someone will come after her. She laughs and says yes, and that she's too busy to do this for long. She hands over a large document, saying that he should familiarize himself with its contents. He admits he should have stayed on break. It was a mission to destroy a portal. Dayan asks if he can refuse missions like this. After all, it's in the contract. Yanni explains that it's a mission requested by the government and that other guilds are participating, which will take about 2 days. Dayan explains that there are 2 types of portals, Type A, which generates monsters, and after you destroy all of them, it disappears on its own, and Type B, which doesn't disappear after monsters are generated or even if no monsters are generated when open. In this case, you need to enter the portal, destroy the monsters, and destroy the core. Noticing the pictures, he realizes that this place is familiar to him. He realizes this is one of the worst dungeons after the first portal, the Labyrinth of Corrupted Souls. Dayan confesses that it's more notorious than when it was mentioned by his instructor, and if he had gone in his past life, he would have died. The manager notices that he had problems with another guild last time, and that if it becomes too problematic, they can leave it to another guild. Yami tells him to behave in this meeting. Dissatisfied, Dayan asks if he's someone who gets into conflicts. He mentally assumes that to cross the portal, they'll need a strong shield, but Wang Guho has a contract penalty. The manager, along with Dayan, takes a car to a large, luxurious building. As they exit the car, the driver bows before him and says he'll return soon. Dayan asks the driver not to do that again in the future, as he's already doing his best by carrying him. Raising his head again, the man says he understands. Yami praises him, saying he was very kind, but Dayan mentally assumes he doesn't like being around kind people. Someone greets him while introducing himself as Kim Hyun-ta from Black Hound, also introducing Wang Guho and team leader Jang Hyun. Dayan greets him, saying it's a pleasure to meet him, informing that he is the buyer. The man says he heard the story and apparently Dayan is interested in hiring Wang Guho for White House. Smiling, he says that the Stone Man is an important talent for them. Looking at him, Dayan supposes he will ask for something absurd to cancel the contract. The manager intervenes, saying that she understands Black Hound's position, but that they are not interested in paying 50 billion for the contract termination. With a sinister look, he says it's no longer 50 billion, as Dayan signed a new contract this morning, leaving Yomi completely shocked. He informs that now the penalty for termination is 100 billion. Dayan presumes they are secretly recording somewhere, so he gets up and says they should leave. Dayan concludes that since the manager is the daughter of the owner of White House, she would be the perfect person to be marked as evil. Putting his arm around the Stone Man, Hyun-tae says that apparently the buyer doesn't really need him. He says that if Dayan changes his mind, he can call him, but apparently the child liked the cake a lot, and maybe they should go to the doctor, since he won a long time ago. Dayan mentally laments while delivering a powerful slap to Hyun-tae's face. The team leader of the Black Hound Guild says that he's crazy and starts preparing to counterattack. However, Dayan delivers several strikes to his body, leaving him completely stunned. When he looks at Dayan, Dayan is already in front of him with a terrifying look. With a powerful kick, he throws him out of the room, breaking the door. The 2 guards who were guarding the door enter, saying that if he's going to fight, he better be sure he's stronger than Jang Sikhyun. Extremely irritated, Dayan tells them to stop the show and call the guild leader. Youngi, enchanted, asks if even when irritated, he can leave people alive like this. He says she doesn't seem too relieved by that. Dayan tells Lily that these things may happen in the future, so she shouldn't eat everything they give her. He walks toward Wang Guho, concluding that the child is still fine, and that all of this could be a lie, but he must continue. With an extremely frightening look, he says he will have a talk with the man later. Suddenly, everyone's attention is drawn to a man with an incredible thirst for blood. As he enters, Dayan informs that this is one of the most powerful humans, a legendary dog of the underworld. This was the warrior called Taechin, one of the greatest mages of the current time. The man asks if Dayan called him and says he wants to understand how this situation ended up like this. Waving his hand, Dayan says he will tell him everything, but first he must allow everyone to leave. The manager is confused while the guild master says that he really is a good friend and will take full responsibility alone. He asks Lily to accompany Youngi and go to the guild. She irritably asks if she should burn everything. Dayan scolds her, saying she should never use fire without his permission, and that if that happens, she'll never eat chicken again. Dayan sits in front of the master and asks what he wants from him. The master asks directly if Dayan would like to work for him. Dayan says the penalty for his contract would be too high. With an evil smile, he says he's not asking Dayan to leave his current guild. Taechin says that Dayan can continue working with White House, but you must send him information regularly. The master says he will pay him enough. Dayan asks what would happen if he refuses. Releasing a bit of his mana, Taechin says that in that case, he will have to pay the price for bothering him. But interrupting the negotiation, Chang-Su starts ordering the master to bring the leader of the 7th team to him immediately. In front of the building with a spear in his hand, he says that if they don't leave by the end of his count, he will enter. While the representative is shouting, Dayan appears behind him, asking what he's doing. He turns around and explains that they kidnapped one of his leaders, but Dayan explains that they accepted his sincere apology. Trying to calm Chang-Su, he says that sometimes sincerity works. With a smile, Dayan says that he heard Taechin has a very close relationship with Jisoo. Dayan says it would be very bad if people found out that the CEO has a special relationship with his younger brother's wife. He says he'll remain silent if they accept his terms. First, release Wang Guho without any penalties. Second, by his silence. Dayan recalls that before returning, the master's younger brother discovered his relationship and was dragged into it with the wife. The representative, extremely angry, asks how the master of the Black Hound Guild can be so dirty and confesses that he wants to hit him. But the manager, irritated, asks if he shouldn't be happy that nothing serious happened. Dad and wonders why Lily is quiet. He places his hand on her head, telling the child that she doesn't need to play with fire. Throwing a tantrum, she says she's hungry, leaving Dayan even more confused. Yami approaches him, saying that the little girl is probably also worried. A bit confused, he asks if that's true. Concluding that this also happens with children, he asks the little girl if she wants to eat chicken for dinner tonight, assuming that if the manager or the representative didn't care about him, it wouldn't have tried to save him. A little later, Wang Guho, looking frightened, approaches him and greets him. He bows and apologizes for what happened, informing Dayan that the master forced him to sign the contract. Dayan asks him to sit. While offering him a drink, Dayan informs him that the paperwork is already signed and that from now on he is a tank for their team. Dayan remembers that this man was an orphan, shy and introverted, which is why he lived like a slave and was discarded during the first disaster. A bit awkward, the stone man asks why someone like Dayan would choose someone weak and without talent. Turning his arms to stone, Wang Guho says he should tell him about his abilities in case he doesn't know. Dayan leans his shoulder on him and asks him to stay still for a moment. He remembers the mobile fortress called Min Chiol, who will begin his incredible career as a hero in 10 years. But Wang currently has more endurance than the structures initially made by Min, so Dayan believes he is better. Convinced that Wang is better, he says that in no more than 6 months, there will be no better tank in Seoul than him. Extremely surprised, the man starts to say that this isn't possible, but Dayan assures him that he personally promises this, and that's why he will make him acquire the talent necessary to be the best. At this moment, Seam appears, saying that the food is ready, while the man remains completely enchanted by his leader. There's innate soup with monster chunks. Dayan orders everyone to take 3 bowls to prepare for the labyrinth of corrupted souls. After 2 days, they were on a mission to hunt monsters. Dayan defends the stone man from a large white lion. Dayan, now irritated, asks how a tank can be afraid and tells him to start blocking if he regrets it. Dayan tells him to get as close as possible and grab the monster, preventing it from escaping. Dayan explains that he ate mana-nutritional foods for 2 days and also trained a lot, and for now he's still in the phase of increasing his petrification. After grabbing the animal, the feline begins attacking him with its claws. Even with fear and feeling some pain, he continues holding onto the monster. Dayan says that if he doesn't hold onto the monster for an entire minute, he'll have to eat 6 plates of mana-nutritional food. He tells Lily that the next one will be her. Irritated, she says she won't do it since he always gives her tasteless food and never buys chicken. He just says that today's dinner will be chicken, and she starts summoning a fireball while drooling. She launches her attack and they defeat the monster. While Lily and Dayan argue, the stone man notices that compared to them, he's extremely weak. Dayan asks the control room to find another monster, while mentally confessing that he needs more monsters to test them. Yumi informs him that there's a monster at 7 o'clock, but another team from the warrior guild is closer. He asks about the detailed distance difference, and she says that they are 2 kilometers away, and the other team is 1 kilometer. Dayan tells the little girl to follow him and help the rookie. They start arguing again while Wang Guho continues being scared. In the blink of an eye, Dayan speeds off. He confesses that he didn't forget to strengthen himself and ate the mana-nutritional foods along with his training. Some awakened ones are running toward the monster, when suddenly, Dayan passes extremely fast by them, saying that this is his hurry. The other team starts preparing to attack from a distance, since whoever lands the first blow gets priority when claiming rewards. He uses an attack called Heavenly Palace. Quickly, he uses his blade to attack the monster. While complaining about his belt, the awakened ones wonder if he's a speed attack specialist. He informs the manager that the hunt is over and asks if there's another one coming. After some time, Lily is showing off, since she managed to do what he said, and asks if they'll have chicken now. Yami says the portal closed and thanks the Team 7 for their work, while Dayan says they'll resolve things there. Some people approach them. One of them is Ilnam from the medical team, who asks if Dayan is okay. He says yes and tells the guy to help Lily wash her hands. His brother Lee Naun is from filming and says the video turned out amazing and wants to show it to the leader. While he looks at the footage, Seol from the equipment support team asks him to raise his arms for a look. Dayan says that the 3 Chian brothers that Youngie chose will soon gain fame in their respective areas, and he's curious about how she manages that. He says he hasn't memorized their names yet, but that in future dungeons, he'll give them a good rest and bonus. With a smile, Dayan asks them to take care of his team in the future. The brothers start saying that he's the best leader. Already in the car, the driver says that Dayan is very popular. He denies it, saying that he only observes the feelings of the people present in the field. Dayan confesses that he's already followed orders without questioning them, getting tired and leaving the guild, but the people on his team don't need to feel that. The manager of the Smile says that he knows how to handle people very well, and maybe it's his second life. She stops joking and hands him a document regarding the purchase of a specific item, also informing him that his weapon will be ready in 2 days. Youngie asks if this is the person he was looking for and says it was very difficult to find him, only managing it through a video. He was looking for Youngshin Jang, the only person in Korea with the ability to create. Dayan asks where the boy is now. Hey everyone, did you enjoy the story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.